enrolled in the Union Army. And let me tell you how he did this, y'all. He issued the proclamation, actually, he wrote it in July, and he actually issued it in September 22nd of 1862. We went up to a battlefield up here in Maryland, and he issued the proclamation, and he said to the South, you guys put down your arms, cut out this revolution, stop committing treason against the United States of America, swear your allegiance to this country and to the flag, come back into the Union, and things will be, quote, as they were. You got to do this before January 1st. And I'm going to tell you, the definition for as they were meant, you can keep your slaves. That's right. He said, if you surrender, come back into the Union, things will be as they were, you can keep your slaves. Okay? Lincoln was never talking about getting rid of slavery in the places where it existed. He was talking about not allowing it to spread around the rest of the country. Now, that was a problem, because, especially for these runaways, because if you ran away into New York or Chicago or someplace and you were a slave, technically speaking, once they passed the Fugitive Slave Act, they had a right to come and get you.
And they did.
Okay? And they came and got people too. They sure did. Now,
did.
some of these states were passing laws saying you can't do that anymore. You can't come to Massachusetts. This is the irony of this thing. Those people who talk about states' rights, you all, they believe in states' right down there. But they didn't believe Massachusetts had the right to say you can't come get these slaves. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So Lincoln says, you put down your arms and come back in the Union before January 1. If you do not do that, the Emancipation Proclamation will take effect January 1, 1863, and paragraph 6 says, persons of suitable condition will be brought into the Union Army. It only applied to those states that were in rebellion, to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. There were 3.9 million blacks living in those states. So what did paragraph 6 mean? I'm going to arm the slaves. That's right. That's what it meant. Hey, if you're September 22nd, you got 100 days from September to make up your mind. If you don't come back in the Union by the 1st of January, paragraph 6 kicks in, we're going to arm the slaves. Now, I was born in the state of Georgia. My folks have been in Georgia ever since they came here. Ever since they were brought here. I ain't going to say they come. You know, you come when you buy a ticket. That's how you come. You save your money, buy yourself a ticket, get a passport, a visa or something. That's how you come to America. My folks have been in Georgia ever since they were brought to America. Okay, my mother still lives there. I go back and forth to see her all the time. I'm still sending money down there too. But so paragraph 6 said, now in the state of Georgia and South Carolina, there were more, and Mississippi, there were more slaves living there than there were white people.
Amen. That's right.
And this is why these people have so much trouble with this, you all, because now these people, you know, intellectuals look at this thing and say, if Lincoln says he's going to give these people a gun, and they outnumber us, maybe we ought to think about this. Maybe we ought to think about this before we do it, right? So they want to do over. They want a chance to think this over again. That's why they keep reenacting these things down there. They think the ending's going to change. But that's not going to happen. Now, I was at a church on New Year's Eve, at a church up here in Adams Morgan, and in the church program, they had something in there which I was very delighted to see. They said, watch night service in the black church came about on December 31, when black people gathered together to pray and preach and sing, waiting on January 1, when the Emancipation Proclamation kicked in. Okay? And in the same article, they said some of these churches have concern about this because this is not, quote, a religious holiday, like Easter and whatever. That's interesting, isn't it? People gather around. Well, why would we gather around those places on watch night, watching and waiting for this to kick in? You could not have a church if you lived in these places as slaves. Black people couldn't even have churches. And even in the case in the North, these churches were segregated. The Catholic Church was segregated even when the Civil Rights Movement started. Still Catholic, still segregated. When I say that, you could go there and give your money, but you had to sit in some special place, in the back or in the balcony, like we did in Georgia in the movie. Like you can be priests, nuns. That's what I mean, you all. So watch night has a special meaning for us. That's very different than what it has for other people, and that is we're waiting to see if this thing is going to kick in, if this is for real. Because you know, we know white people are going to be tricky. Y'all know that, right? They could have changed their mind about this before David. So we had to invoke all the Spirit of the Lord to help us get this thing through, so we could, you know what I'm saying? So we had and I want to give you a quote just in case you think this is not. I brought this one quote because we are going to, at the African American Civil War Museum, we are going to have a major celebration on April the 12th. This is the day that they fired on Fort Sumter. April 12, 1861. This is when the Civil War officially begins. Now, black soldiers don't get brought into the Union Army until May of 1863, right? Emancipation Proclamation kicks in on January 1. It takes them 3 or 4 months to organize these guys. You got to have 6 weeks of basic training. You got to go on these plantations and organize these guys, find them. You got to find Mr. Henry Reed's grandfather and get him in a uniform, train him how to be a soldier, and things like that, right? So it takes a little while before you get the first units on the field. But you all know, those of you who watched Glory, which was played on TCM channel on Monday, the movie Glory, that battle took place in July of 1863, July 18th of 1863. So January 1, they become soldiers. In July, they're in a major battle. And that's not the first major battle. The movie made that. They made that into a big battle because Robert Goode Shaw was leading it and all that stuff. But that was not the first battle. These guys are in battle. I mean, they're in armed conflict, fighting their slave masters in some cases. And so by July, we got people in the Union Army. But this is what Frederick Douglass said on day 1 when he heard that they had fired on Fort Sumter. These are the words of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass says, "For this consummation," he's talking about the war now, "we have watched and wished with fear and trembling. God be praised," he said, "that it has come at last. We would have been glad if the North, of its own proper version," in other words, if Lincoln and the North had given this quietus to doubt and instead of a vacillation. In other words, he's saying we would have felt better about this if the North had started this war instead of the South starting it. So this is him. He says, "But perhaps it is best